I'm 24 with a 10-year-old daughter, and I lie about my age to almost everyone because the truth makes people uncomfortable. I'm 24 years old. I have a daughter who just turned 10, and almost no one in my life knows how old I actually am. On paper, the math doesn't add up. In real life, the reactions are worse. Most people assume my daughter is my little sister. When they find out I'm her dad, they usually pause, do a quick calculation in their head, and then look at me differently. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's pity. Sometimes it's judgment they don't even bother hiding. A long time ago, without really thinking about it, I started adding 4 years to my age when people asked. It just slipped out the first time. I was exhausted, new to parenting, new to being on my own, and I didn't want to deal with the looks. I didn't want questions. I didn't want people deciding who I was based on something that happened to me when I was a kid. So I lied. And once I realized how much easier things became, I kept doing it. To explain why this matters so much, I have to go back to the beginning, and that part is hard. My daughter was born when I was very young. I was a young teen. I didn't understand what had happened to me at the time. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't have the language for it, and I didn't have anyone who made me feel safe enough to talk. When I was 16, I finally told my parents. Their reaction wasn't what people imagine when they talk about telling a trusted adult. There was no outrage on my behalf, no immediate protection, no reassurance that it wasn't my fault. Instead, the message was, leave it alone. My dad told me that if I spoke up, I'd be mocked, that people wouldn't take me seriously, that it would make things worse. My parents made it very clear they didn't want me to report what had happened. They weren't subtle about it. A couple of months later, I reported it anyway. They were furious. And my dad was right about one thing. I did get mocked. People didn't know what to do with a boy in my position, and a lot of them chose cruelty instead of empathy. I learned very quickly how disposable my pain was. When I was 17, the court ordered a DNA test. I was confirmed as my daughter's father. Her mother started getting serious scrutiny. She lost custody. She was allowed supervised visits twice a week. The police eventually dropped the case. That part still hurts, but I don't dwell on it the way I used to. I had to learn how to put some things down just to survive. After everything, her mother started messaging me. She said she was struggling, that she was being treated unfairly, that it was my fault her life was ruined. She wanted me to help make amends by meeting her in public so people would see we were friendly, so it would look like things weren't as bad as they were. I didn't want to meet her. I knew it was a bad idea, but my parents pushed me. They said it was the right thing to do, that I owed her something, that I'd already caused enough damage. So I agreed. We met a couple of times in public places, cafes, neutral spaces. I kept my guard up, but I was still young, still trying to please people who never seemed satisfied. Then she tried something on with me. That time, I didn't freeze. I didn't rationalize it. I didn't let it happen. I shut it down and left. I was stronger than I'd been before, but it still shook me. It reinforced something I already knew deep down. The people around me weren't prioritizing my safety. They were prioritizing comfort, appearances, silence. Visitation continued for a while after that. When I was 18, she ended her life. There was a note. In it, she blamed me. She also blamed other people, other circumstances, but my name was there. That detail is something that never really leaves you. My parents reminded me, more than once, that they'd warned me not to report, that if I just left it alone, things wouldn't have gone so far, that I'd wrecked her life. I don't think they realized how much damage those words did. Or maybe they did, and they just didn't care. When I was 19, I left. My dad made it clear I wasn't welcome anymore. The reasons were layered, but that history was at the core of it. I took my daughter and moved to another country. The countries are closely linked, culturally and geographically, but the distance was still enough to feel like breathing for the first time in years. At first, we lived in emergency accommodation. It was scary and unstable, but it was ours. Eventually, I was lucky enough to get social housing. A small place, nothing fancy, but safe, predictable, quiet. Moving was the best thing I ever did for both of us. I could finally focus on being her dad without constantly feeling like I was on trial.
Early on, someone asked me how old I was. They'd seen me with my daughter and did a double take. I panicked and added 4 years without thinking. I didn't even consciously decide to lie, it just came out. The relief was immediate. No awkward pause, no questions, no recalculations, just acceptance. So I kept doing it. Now, unless it's an official document, I tell people I'm older than I am. My boss knows my real age because it mattered for paperwork. My partner knows because I eventually trusted them enough to tell the truth. They're also the only person in my new life who knows the full story. Everyone else just knows me as a young-looking dad. Sometimes people still comment on how young I seem. Sometimes they joke about how I must have started early, but It's nothing compared to the reactions I used to get. No one looks at me like I'm something broken they don't know how to categorize. I feel guilty sometimes for lying, but I also feel protective of the life I've built. I didn't survive everything I did just to keep re-traumatizing myself for other people's curiosity. My daughter is happy. She's safe. She knows she's loved. She doesn't need to know every detail of my past yet. She just knows that I'm her dad and that I'm here. I don't know if I'll always lie about my age. Maybe someday it won't feel so heavy. Maybe someday I'll trust the world enough to tell the truth without bracing for impact. For now, this is how I keep myself steady. This is how I keep my story from becoming the only thing people see when they look at me. I didn't choose how my life started. I did choose to protect myself and my child the best way I knew how. I just needed to get this off my chest. If you read all of this, thank you.